So this session is dedicated to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki. Let's chant the verse. Kachet na ubhaya bibrasataha kachin ubhaya bibrastas kachin ubhaya bibrastas chinna abhram iva nashyati chinna abhram iva nashyati apratishtha mahabaho apratishto mahabaho vimudhaha brahmanaha patihi vimudho brahmanaha pathi kachinubhaya bibrashtas chinna bharamiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati kachinubhaya bibrashtas chinna brahmana iva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati kachinubhaya bibrashtas chinna brahmana iva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudha brahmana pati Chinnabhaya bibrashtas chinna brahmaiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati kachinnabhaya bibrashtas chinna brahmaiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati kachinubhaya bibrashtas chinna brahmaiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati. Online.
Kachinubhaya vibrastas
Chinnubhaya vibrastas
chinnabhram iva nashyati
chinnabhramaiva nashyati
apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati
Kachinubhaya vibrastas chinnabhramiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati
Kachinubhaya vibrastas chinnabhramiva nashyati pratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati
Hare Krishna. Kachinno bhaya vibrastas chinna brahmamiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho विमूढो ब्राह्मणपति
मूढो ब्रह्मणपति. Anybody else?
Kachinno bhaya vibrastas,
Ajinno bhaya vibhrastas.
chinna brahmiva nashyati,
Chinna brahmaiva nashyati.
apratishto mahabaho,
Apratishto mahabaho.
vimudo brahmana pati.
Vimudho brahmणपति.
कश्चिन्नो भयो बिभ्रतस्
Achinno bhaya vibhrastas.
छिन्ना ब्रह्म इव नश्यति
Chinna brahmaiva nashyati.
अप्रतिष्ठो महाबाहो
Apratishto mahabaho.
विमूढो ब्राह्मणापति
Vimudho brahmणपति. Synonyms: kachet, whether; na, not; ubhaya, both; vibrashtaha, deviated from; chinna, fallen; abhrama, cloud; iva, likened; nashyati, perishes; apratishtaha, without any position; mahabaho, O mighty armed Krishna; vimudhaha, bewildered; brahmanaha, of transcendence; pati, on the path. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? Translation with repetition. O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are two ways to progress. Those who are materialists have no interest in transcendence. Therefore, they are more interested in material advancement by economic development or in promotion to the higher planets by appropriate work. When one takes to the path of transcendence, one has to cease all material activities and sacrifice all forms of so-called material happiness. If the aspiring transcendentalist fails, then he apparently loses both ways. In other words, he can enjoy neither material happiness nor spiritual success. He has no position. He is like a riven cloud. A cloud in the sky sometimes deviates from a small cloud and joins a big one. But if it cannot join a big one, then it is blown away by the wind and it becomes a non-entity in the vast sky. The Brahmana Pati is the path of transcendental realization through knowing oneself to be spiritual in essence, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who is manifested as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Lord Shri Krishna is the fullest manifestation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and therefore one who is surrendered to the Supreme Person is a successful transcendentalist. To reach this goal of life through Brahman and Paramatma realization takes many, many births. Bahunam Janmanam Ante. Therefore, the supermost of transcendental realization is Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness, the direct method. I read the next verse. Etan me samshayam Krishna chetum arhasi aseshataha twad anyaha samsayasyasya chetta nahi upapadyate. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Purport. Krishna is the perfect knower of past, present, and future. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said that all living entities existed individually in the past, they exist now in the present, and they continue to retain individual identity in the future, even after liberation from the material entanglement. So he has already cleared up the question of the future of the individual living entity. Now Arjuna wants to know of the future of the unsuccessful transcendentalist. No one is equal to or above Krishna, and certainly the so-called great sages and philosophers who are at the mercy of material nature cannot equal him. Therefore, the verdict of Krishna is the final and complete answer to all doubts, because he knows past, present, and future perfectly, but no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees alone can know what is what. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Am I audible online?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Just checking. So, it's very wonderful verse. As always in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, there is nothing which is not special, which is not wonderful. So what we are doing today, we will see this verse. But to see and understand and appreciate this verse, what we would do is just do a recap of what we have done so far. Not a huge lot of recap, but just to know where we are and why this verse is spoken. Just to see that whether you're awake or not. Can you tell me who's speaking this verse quickly without seeing? Online quickly.
Arjuna Prabhu.
Okay. Any other answer?
Krishna.
Krishna, yes, Krishna is everywhere. The heart of Arjuna, also Krishna is there. Who else? Anybody else? Sanjay is also there. Dhritarashtra is also there.
Arjuna Prabhuji.
Okay, time you would have seen, I'm sure. But if you have not, then that's the right answer. Okay, let's see what is happening. Why Arjuna is speaking this verse? What is the context? Because sometimes asking is good. Sometimes asking is also not so good. But just understand these verses. Why we are while we are spending time, what we can learn. I mean, this is an opportunity in front of us. Weekends, 1 hour we spend. If we just pay little attention, not a lot, but a little attention, it can actually help us a lot in progress in our spiritual life. It should not be done as a formality or the time has to be ticked 7:30 to 8:30. I attended Bhagavad Gita Bhagavatam lecture. It's not like that. So let's see what's going on, why this question or why this particular verse is spoken by Arjuna. Just to give you a recap of what's happening here, if you remember the 6th chapter, 34th verse, 3 or 4 verse before, Arjuna spoke that for the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it is, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the wind. Mind you, this verse is spoken by Arjuna after a very long time. The entire 5th chapter, then 6th chapter, till 33rd verse, Krishna is speaking. And all of a sudden, Arjuna started talking. And the first thing that he said was, Arjuna Vacha. Sorry, he started speaking in the 33rd verse, but I've just taken it from 34th verse, where he says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Pramadhi balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayuriva suduskara. A lot of adjectives used by Arjuna. When having heard the entire process of Sankhya Yoga, Arjuna is expressing his doubt that with this mind which is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and strong, chanchalam, pramati, balavat, dridham, how will I ever be possible? How will I ever be able to do this Sankhya Yoga which you are recommending, O Krishna? Because I probably can subdue the wind. I can probably do that. The raising wind, maybe I'll be able to do because I'm Arjuna, I'm a Kshatriya, I'm a warrior, I'm a devotee. But I can't continue, I can't control my mind. So Arjuna expresses his doubt and helplessness. And then the Lord begins to speak. And when the Lord speaks, things change a lot. So Krishna is telling Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Samsayam Mahabaho, Mano Durnigraham Chalam, Abhyasena tu Kaunteya, Vairagyena Chakrishyate. First, Krishna acknowledges that what you are saying is true. Undoubtedly, it is very difficult to curb the restless mind. Asamsaya Mahabaho, Mano Durnigraham Chalam. It's very difficult to control the mind. But it is possible, as Krishna says, Abhyasena tu Kaunteya, Vairagyena Chakrishyate. Two things which Krishna mentions is Abhyasa and Vairagya. Abhyasa is constant practice and Vairagya is detachment. You want to control the mind, here is Krishna's recommendation. Very few recommendations, direct recommendations you find, but this is Krishna saying, and this is the Supreme Lord saying, so mind you, not some ordinary person. Try it out, it works. But Krishna qualifies that statement saying, for one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Sometimes Krishna puts it in that way, that this is my opinion. Asamsayatmana yogo dusprapa iti me matihi. This is my opinion, me matihi. What is his mati? Vashya atmana tu yatata sakyo vaptum upayataha. If you follow the process, mind you, practice alone is not enough. You may try to practice, but if the practice is not the right practice, it will not result in the right result, or it will not give you the right result. So he's telling, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. So the right means is a very important thing which Krishna brings out. In the 36th verse, then comes Arjuna's question further, which was in the last class. What is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Now this question of Arjuna is a very important one. Ayati Shraddhayopeto Yogat Chalita Manasaha Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. So Chalita Manasa, we had seen this last time. In the last class, Prabhu actually explained Krishna's answers, which will come in 2-3 verses later, that even if you are unsuccessful, there is nothing to lose. You continue from that same place. He gave examples of the Maruts, the story of Indra and Diti. Diti was doing this austerity to take revenge against Indra, and how Indra came and served and spoiled the austerity or the practices done by Diti. But since he was engaged in devotional service, things got changed. But that's all Krishna's assurance, which we will hear when Krishna actually speaks. That will come in after 2 or 3 verses. The reason I took 2 verses today is because this is Arjuna again continuing in 38 and 39. And what he continues is very important, very nice to know, because why this doubt, first of all, is coming in Arjuna's mind? Because Krishna himself is telling, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. So he's acknowledging. That acknowledgement of Krishna that this is difficult to curb the restless mind creates a doubt in Arjuna's case. What if I try and I could not achieve the destination? What if I become unsuccessful? What will happen? That is why the question is very relevant. What is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to this process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Can be any one of us, like we see many times devotees join ashram full time, thinking that they will remain the whole lifelong brahmachari. But then again, sometimes something happens. Mind creates some doubts or favorable situations. Try it out again in the material world. Worldly mindedness. You may take up with this process of self-realization, and they change their ashram. Of course, bhakti yoga is so conducive that one can. It is not that it is lost. You can still practice, but it is not the same. The same mind which once convinced the person to take to the shelter of Krishna gives favorable arguments to go and practice outside. So in that context, this verse is very important. One of the things which we have to keep in mind while reading these verses and reading the purports of Srila Prabhupada, that these are not related to Sankhya Yoga at all. These are universal principles. These are applicable to any man who's trying to attain the state of self-realization. You may try Jnana Yoga, you may try Ashtanga Yoga, you may try Bhakti Yoga also. There could be fall downs. There could be something that can happen which you don't want really to happen in your life. But we have to learn. And that's why Arjuna is asking this question on our behalf. What is the destination of a man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to this process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Let's see today's verse and understand the Arjuna's two questions. Now, the beautiful verse that we read today. I took these two verses because the next verse, Krishna is going to speak and he'll slash all the doubts. But before that, let's appreciate what is Arjuna's concern. So the first thing that he's saying, "O mighty on Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere?" Imagine a riven cloud. As Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, if the riven cloud is not supported, it can be just blown away. It can be disintegrated completely. So the situation of a man who did not complete, who didn't achieve the perfection in self-realization, and he's coming back to the material life. What is his position? Because he's lost in the material life. Now he's not there in the spiritual life. Will he not be completely taken away by that, like the riven cloud? This is an analogy which is given. Bhagavad Gita's analogies are very powerful. Actually, the position of riven cloud is very helpless. It doesn't have any strength on its own. It can be blown away by wind. So this is what Arjuna is telling. And then the next verse is telling, "This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt." I want to remind you of this powerful instruction, which I have said earlier many times, but worth remembering. This is the instruction which Jada gives to King Rahugana. We have discussed this earlier a few times. But this verse is so important because this verse has actually the clue. If you really want to control your mind, if you really are serious, not just want. Many people want to do many things in life, but they are not serious about many things. But if you are really serious, you have understood the nature of mind really to some extent. We all experience that. But if you have experienced and you have realized your helplessness in front of your own mind, and you are serious about controlling your mind, remember this chapter, 5th canto, 11th chapter. It is the smallest chapter in the entire Bhagavad Gita Bhagavata, 17 verses. Smallest chapter in Bhagavad Gita is 20 verses, 12th and 15th chapter. But this chapter has 17 verses, and all 17 verses are related to mind. The verse that we are talking about, which I shared earlier also, is a verse which is spoken by Jada, and the verse is Bhratravyamenam tadadabraviryam upekshayadhedhitam apramattaha guror haresh charanopasanastro jahi velikam swayamatma mosham. In this verse, Jada is actually telling that the uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. Statement in itself is axiomatic truth. You may say, no, this person is my enemy, or this situation is my enemy. No. Actually, we don't have any other enemy other than our own uncontrolled mind, which lives within us, with whom we live always 24/7. If it is uncontrolled, mind you, this is the greatest enemy. This uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of the living entity. And one very dangerous symptom or characteristic of this mind is if one neglects it. You think, okay, this is uncontrolled, it will go on its own, let me live with it. What is the problem? It's a matter of time when it will become controlled. No. No, no, no. If one neglects it or gives it a chance, it will grow more and more powerful and will become victorious. Although it is not factual, it is very strong. Why it is called it is not factual? Because this is material. This is given in Bhagavad Gita in 7.5, where Krishna says, Bhumirapo nalavayu kham manobuddhirevacha ahankara itiyamne bhinna prakritirashtata. These are different. This is not soul's constitutional or soul's individual parts. It's not part of the soul. It's not integral with the soul. It's a bhinna prakritirashtata. It is a covering on the soul. It is not factual because it is material, but it is subtle and it is strong. Kham mano buddhirevacha. That mano is mind. It is not factual. It is very strong. The real danger of this mind, which is uncontrolled, is that it covers the constitutional position of the soul. It covers that. So that covering is so strong, it makes you identify with this material world. You feel you are part of this material world. You identify yourself with this matter. That is the real danger. It covers the constitutional position. Constitutional position of the soul is, I am eternally part and parcel of the Lord. Rishi kena rishi kesha sevanam. Mamai vanso jiva loke. Jivera swarubhai nitya krishna das. This is what I am. I'm part and parcel of the Lord. But an uncontrolled mind covers that constitutional position. It makes you believe that you are this matter, you are this body, you are this mind, and this material world is your eternal abode. O King, please try to conquer this mind. This is the solution which Jadabharat gives by the weapon of service to the lotus feet of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he again ends with the statement, do this with great care. It's a reassertion, it's a reaffirmation. He's saying, don't take it lightly. There is no way. Of course, we all know about engaging in devotional service to Krishna. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, that's what I was telling. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam bhaktiruchyate. When we engage our services when we engage our senses in the service of Rishikesha, the master of the senses, that's called the Uttama Bhakti. That's what it is meant for. But while saying that, what Jadabharat is also saying, that try to conquer this mind by the weapon of service. It's a weapon. Charana Upasana Astro. Upasana Astro. And Upasana is not only for the Lord, it's also for the spiritual master. The lotus feet of the spiritual master. Yashya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada. So that is why devotees take initiation. Come and take shelter of the pure devotee spiritual master. One may immediately say, well, I have been initiated for last so many years, but my mind is still disturbing. Why? Answer is very simple. Initiation is just the beginning. It's a formal process. It's a vow that you have taken to follow the instructions of your spiritual master. If you don't follow the instructions of spiritual master, even if you are initiated, what's the use of that? It's like, which Madhu Pandit Prabhu keeps telling, let's say there is a fire which is lit up and you go and pour water in that. And you expect that the fire to keep burning. How will it? When the water is meant to extinguish the fire. Similarly, if we don't follow the instructions of the spiritual master and expect that the mind will be controlled, how will it? Initiation is not just one magical this thing that happens that you become completely different person altogether. No, that's a spiritual promise. That's a spiritual seriousness of a sadhaka who takes this vow that I will follow these instructions of my spiritual master. One does that, then Jahi Veli comes Swayam Atma Mosha. Then one can control this mind. Very interestingly, the previous verse of this chapter, same Jadabharat's instruction. Jadabharat says something very, very powerful. Pay attention to this. As I said, this whole chapter is very nice. You can read this on your own, but just the previous verse. So here, Jadabharat is telling, Nayavadetam manatmalingam samsaratapavapavanam janasya yatshoka moha mayaragalobha vairanubandham mamatam vidhatte. What this verse is telling is, the soul's designation, the mind, is the cause of all tribulations in the material world. Now, it's a very interesting statement of Prabhupada, the first line of the translation. The soul's designation, the mind, is the cause of all tribulations in the material world. So I said the definition of bhakti is sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam. To be free from all the designations. But when the mind is uncontrolled, the soul's designation, soul actually designates itself with the mind. And when the soul designates, he identifies the self is now designated as mind, that becomes the cause of all tribulations in the material world. What the mind does actually, it takes the person to a corner and makes him think, you are like this, you are that, you are a father, you are a mother, you are a software engineer, you are a devotee suffering, you are being, all these kind of things mind keeps telling. And the soul accepts this because the soul's designation, the mind, is the cause of all tribulations in the material world. Everything else the mind says, except for the fact that I am Krishna's, or I am part and parcel of the Lord. And the soul, when it accepts, when the soul is identifying, soul has accepted that designation that I am this mind, that is the cause of all tribulations in the material world. As long as this fact is unknown to the conditioned living entity, he has to accept the miserable condition of the material body and wander within this universe in different positions. So if the living entity, if it is unknown to the conditioned living entity, this fact, he has to accept the miserable condition of the material. So much of pain, so much of suffering. Why? Because the mind is accepted. I've identified myself mind and wander within the universe in different positions. Because the mind is affected by disease, lamentation, illusion, attachment, greed, enmity. It creates a bondage. These are all identification of the mind. The soul is not going through all these things. There is no disease, there is no lamentation, there is no illusion, there is no attachment, there is no friend, there is no enemy, there is no greed. These are all identification with the mind. Mind considers this person to be one's friend. Mind considers somebody else to be his enemy. Mind associates or identifies with greed, lamentation. Oh, mere saath aisa ho gaya. Disease, illusion. They're all because of the mind. It creates bondage. And you see the last line, and a false sense of intimacy within this material world. When the soul is, designating itself with the mind, there is a false sense of intimacy within this material world is created. I have to do something in this. I have to, very thickly I'm connected with this material world. I have to live here with all possible these things. Marunga kisi ko, ye karunga, I'll plan, I'll plot, I'll do something, but I'll live here happily ever after. I have to live with this material world in this body, is what the mind, the soul thinks, start thinking. It not only creates bondage, it also creates a sense of intimacy within this material world. Very precarious situation. That is why to learn what is exactly the problem and how it is stated by the scriptures is very important. That's why this chapter is very, very important chapter. Now, you could say that, only probably the people who are practicing Sankhya Yoga or Jnana Yoga, maybe they are going through all this problem. It is difficult to control their mind. I am a bhakti yogi. I am practicing devotion. So for me, it should be easy because I'm engaging my senses in Krishna's service. Not true. The reason being, true and not true, because the reason being, Krishna says in the 4th chapter, 11th verse, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tatheva bhajamya. Mama bhartamanu bhartante manushya partha sarvat. So it doesn't matter who you are. The formula that Krishna uses, or the formula which works, is actually as you surrender, Krishna reciprocates. You may be any yogi, jnana yogi, dhyana yogi, ashtanga yogi, bhakti yogi, whatever it is. Depending upon your surrender in the heart, the Lord reciprocates. So you could have taken the path of jnana, like Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapati. It may take a long time based on your surrender and understanding of Krishna. You are accepting what Krishna says, that everybody in this world, all of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pratha. Then you may question, if everybody is following Krishna's path, And based on the surrender, Krishna is going to reciprocate. Why not, just leave like this, and whenever the time comes, at that time I'll surrender. Whatever I'm doing, this is also fine, because as long as I'm doing anything, I'm following the path of Krishna. Answer is no. You may, know about Jnana Yoga, and you might have heard about different organizations and institutions talking about Jnana Yoga, or some people who are practicing Ashtanga Yoga. But what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita is all these processes are very, very difficult. Right now, I am looking at some people who are sitting here, some devotees. You can't sit fixed in one place. The hands is moving, something is going on, legs are doing something. It's very difficult. Imagine if somebody asks you to go to a secluded place and sit in a place in deep meditation, that is Ashtanga Yoga, how difficult it will be. Or for that matter, if somebody says that follow the path of Jnana, Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita in 12th chapter, 5th verse, Klesho Ekatarastesham, Avyakta Sakta Chetasam, Avyakta hi gatir dukkham deha badbhir abhapyate. Very direct words. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. All of us are embodied. We have accepted this body. And if we want to make progress in Jnana Yoga, extremely difficult. Why? Because we are embodied. We have a bodily concept of life. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. Make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Very next verse, Krishna actually clarifies how it is easy in Bhakti Yoga. Because unless these clarifications are given, one can mislead. One can understand just by reading the 6th chapter, maybe Krishna is wanting us to follow the path of Sankhya Yoga. That's why Acharyas give commentary and explain how Bhakti Yoga is superior and why one should take up with this process of Bhakti. The 6th and 7th verse in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clarifies, Yetu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananyanyeva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate teshamaham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. For one who worships me, giving up all his activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, who has fixed his mind upon me, O son of Pratha, for him I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. So it is very clear, for one who worships me, giving up all his activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, always meditating upon me, who has fixed his mind upon me, O son of Pratha, for him I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. You are looking for liberation, you want to get rid of this material, the cycle of birth and death. Here is Krishna's assurance. If you do this, you will come out of it. But there are a few words which are used. Why this verse of today is very important? Because even in this verse that Krishna is talking, and we can come out of the cycle of birth and death, he's telling without deviation, being devoted to me without deviation. First. Second thing, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me. Even the Bhakti yogis also meditate upon Krishna. And that meditation has to happen, or the devotional service has to happen without deviation. And where the deviation comes, as we saw, if the soul, it designates with the mind, and the mind, gives all kinds of worldly mindedness, which Krishna says in this chapter, this 2 verses. So all this worldly mindedness, one starts identifying. I want to become this, I want to do this, I want to have all these things, I belong to this material, I have to take care of my father, mother, brother, sister, wife, children, husband, putra, agara, all kinds of things, and all this designation start. So this worldly mindedness is something which comes because of the uncontrolled mind. And if that happens, then the without deviation meditation doesn't happen. That's why we have to be careful. If we are not careful, and we are practicing Ashtanga Yoga, if we go to some secluded place and whatever those processes we have seen earlier, if we are practicing that, it's very, very difficult. That's why Arjuna, even in the Dwapara Yuga, being a devotee of Krishna, being a powerful Kshatriya, is telling, no, Baba, I can't do this. I can control the raising wind. My mind, how will I control this? If you don't believe, we have countless examples. We will see few examples. There are jnanis, there are yogis who practice severe austerities, meditation. Jnanis speculate. Prabhupada says one verse from Mahabharata. What is that? Rishir yasya matam na bhinnam. Can you? No. Rishir matam na bhinnam. Actually, no. Nasya rishir yatam matam yati matam na bhinnam. Naso rishir yata matam na bhinnam. Actually, there could not be a sage or a muni who does not differ from another muni. So if one muni, if one jnani, based on his speculation, is telling this is what the whole world is, this is how I am, and this is how I can achieve liberation, other muni has to differ. Right? What are you saying? It's not the way. It has to be a little different. I'll twist it. So yes, you are right. We will achieve liberation, but not in this way. I'll give you another proposition, and he tells. So another third muni. So there is no consensus amongst them. Nasya rishir yata matam na bhinnam. They have to differ. That is the muni. That is called the Muni Syndrome. The moment you see there is one person, one organization talking about achieving self-realization or liberation in this process, another organization comes. Hey, hold on. Not this way. I have a better way. And he says with little twist. This thing is called the Muni Syndrome, and we will talk about this. That is why this question of Arjuna that he is putting forward to Krishna is very important. That's why I brought that translation one more time and see what is so important about this in this translation. So Arjuna is telling, this is my doubt to Krishna. And I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Even if we have taken up to this path of devotion, we may have doubts. To have doubts is not wrong. What do we do with the doubt? This is what we have to learn from this approach of Arjuna, how he is approaching Krishna. So Arjuna is telling, this is my doubt of Krishna. And I ask you to dispel it completely. A doubt can be converted to an inquiry with submission. And when it transforms, when the doubt has become an inquiry with a mood of submission to get an answer, actually that is the best way, because that is how you can receive the mercy of the Lord. Doubt in itself, it continues to grow within, then it is like demoniac. So this is my doubt of Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. Look at the mood of Arjuna. And he's telling, but for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. I have got this doubt now. I'm asking you look at the humility and submission with which Arjuna is approaching Krishna. I ask you to dispel it completely, remove it. I don't want to live with this. And without you, because Krishna is his guru, and he has voluntarily accepted Krishna as his guru, and he's now a soul surrendered. Now he's telling, but for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. There's no one else. The word doubt is very nicely explained in Srimad Bhagavatam from verse. I want all of you to know. This is Kapila Muni's instruction to Mother Parvati. 3:26-30. The first word is samsayo atha viparyaso. Samsayo atha viparyaso. So the word samsaya is doubt. And in the purport, Prabhupada is actually focusing on the word doubt. And it's a very beautiful explanation. What Prabhupada is telling, doubt is one of the important functions of intelligence. Having doubt is nothing wrong. It's an important function of intelligence. Blind acceptance of something does not give evidence of intelligence. Therefore, the word samshaya is very important. In order to cultivate intelligence, one should be doubtful in the beginning. In order to cultivate intelligence, one has to be doubtful in the beginning. See, doubt only comes to those people who have some intelligence. It's a function of intelligence. Blind acceptance of something does not give evidence of intelligence. But very interestingly, which Prabhupada is saying here, the word samshaya is very important. In order to cultivate intelligence, one should be doubtful in the beginning, but doubting is not a very favorable when information is received from the proper source. Mind you, you're reading from Bhagavad Gita, you're reading from Bhagavatam, you're hearing from the authority spiritual master, and still if you doubt, that is not a good thing. Doubting is not a very favorable when information is received from the proper source. And the last sentence in the first paragraph of this verse, Prabhupada is writing in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that doubting the words of the authority is the cause of destruction. Very powerful sentences. Think over it. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that doubting the words of the authority is the cause of destruction. Many people come and take up to this path of Krishna consciousness. But to remain here, to make steady progress, it's not easy. And one of the things which is mentioned here, that the Lord says, doubting the words of the authority is the cause of destruction. When you doubt the words of spiritual master, when you doubt the words of the Supreme Lord, when you doubt the words of the system that is established, that becomes the cause of destruction. So if the doubt is converted to an inquiry, like the case we saw it in Arjuna's case, this is the art and one has to learn this. A devotee turns the doubt into an inquiry. Then he becomes the most fortunate person in this whole world. How? Why? How the doubt, when it is turned to inquiry, it becomes the position all of a sudden changes. Let's see from the verse from Bhagavatam in the first canto, chapter 34th verse. This is Sutta Goswami, while addressing the sages of Naimisharanya. Very interestingly, he reveals this. This is actually a game changer, turning point. Ateha dhanya bhagavanta itham yadva sudeve khilalokanathe kurvanti sarvatmakamatma bhavam nayatra bhuya parivarta ugraha. Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful. And here the word successful refers to successful in transcendental path, in your spiritual realization. Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant. One can become perfectly cognizant. Actually, if you read the purport of today's verse, the 39th verse, which we read, the last line, it says that he knows past, present, and future perfectly, but no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees alone can know what is what. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees can know. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees alone can know what is what. So a person becomes perfectly cognizant. How does a person become cognizant? He becomes cognizant by making such inquiries. And the next thing which he is mentioning in this verse, for such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead. If somebody is not at all inquisitive, there is no, I've become initiated now, what to do? They have asked me to do some service, I'll do some service for a few hours and then I'll go and sleep. I'll take some prasadam. So where is the question of experiencing transcendental ecstatic love? Such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love. That is why this discussion of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam is very important, where somebody is curious, inquisitive to know what happened, why this question, why Arjuna is asking, what is the answer given. That is how it invokes the transcendent. Somebody who's not experiencing is very obvious. But such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who's the proprietor of all the universes, and guarantee 100% immunity from dreadful repetition of birth and death. So you see, this one point I want to highlight today, the class. If the doubt is converted to an inquiry which is submissive, which is done in the right manner and asked, then not only it makes the person cognizant, successful, it also invokes the transcendental ecstatic love into the personality of God. I was talking about this Muni Syndromes earlier, where you can speculate for years and years, and yet you don't reach to any conclusions, or you can go and meditate or do some Ashtanga yoga, severe austerities. But we've seen how those people who do that, how helplessly they become victim of their own senses. First example of Savari Rishi, Savari Muni, who was seated in the water for for a very long time. He was meditating because he was scared. He was very careful. He was fearful that if he sits in the land and meditates, then his senses will get diverted. His mind will become agitated. and he'll not be able to perform austerity. So he goes and sits in the river, and he was doing the severe austerity, but he sees just two fish. Two fish, actually, they were mating. That bewildered his mind so much. He came out of the river and he goes to a king by name Mandhata and asks the hands of 50 daughters of this. Gets married to 50 daughters of Mandhata. Engages in unrestricted sense gratification. Much later, he realizes, my God, what did I do? Right, all my austerity that I had, all the austerity that he had performed, the yoga siddhi that he had obtained, he used it to transform his body and expand himself to 50 different forms to engage, to enjoy with those 50 daughters. Other classic example is of Vishwamitra Muni, right, who performed the severe austerity, and this heavenly girl, what's his name, Menaka comes, and just the sound of the ankle bells, tinkling sound of the ankle bells, that much was enough to agitate Vishwamitra's mind. And then he gets, he becomes a father and then realizes that all his tapovala is over. Another example which Bhagavatam talks about of a person by name Trishanku, who came to the shelter of Vishwamitra, and he had this weird desire. Sometimes people get this weird desire. Can I go and see heaven? What's there? Maybe I should. I need to just find out what's there. Maybe I can figure out if next life it is worthy for me or not. He wanted to go to heaven. It is possible to go to heaven, but not with this body. Once we quit our body, based on our Yanti Deva. No, first line. Yanti Deva. Vratan Deva, right. Whatever we worship, whichever planets we want to, whichever, the controller of the planet that we are worshipping, we reach to that planet. You want to go to heavenly planet, it is possible. There is a process, but he wanted to go in this material body. So what Vishwamitra did was he pushed him with his tapovala to heaven. And Indra saw somebody is coming, so he kicked him. Why are you coming here? You're a threat, so he kicked him. So he could not go to heaven. So he was hanging somewhere in the middle. So Vishwamitra said, don't worry, I'll create a heaven for you in that place. And he created something. So this is what exactly Arjuna's question is. Will I be, if I'm unsuccessful, I could not do a spiritual thing properly, and I come to a material world, there also I'm an unsuccessful, what will happen to me? What is the fate of that? Like a Trishanku, I'm hanging somewhere in the middle, right? So this is the case of Vishwamitra. Or you take the example of Jaimini Rishi, right? The famous Jaimini Rishi who was given one portion of Veda, one darshan is being the Sat Darshan, one of the Sat Darshan philosophy, the Purva Mimamsa, is given to Jaimini by Vedavyas. So once when he was having this conversation with Vedavyas was actually talking about that famous verse which Prabhupada quotes often, that even in a solitary place, one should be careful not to sit with one's own daughter or mother, because our senses are so agitated, so disturbed that anything can happen. So Jaimini Rishi laughed at that. What is this? This seems to be absurd. So Vedavyas said, what do you mean by that? I think I have controlled my senses. So Vedavyas said, Acha, you have controlled your senses, very nice. Vedavyas just smiles and goes. Then Jaimini Rishi, where he was staying, all the sannyasis and the ascetics, they used to live in together in an ashram. One day in the night when it was raining heavily, one lady came and knocked the door of Jaimini Rishi. So Jaimini Rishi asked from within, who's this? I'm a lady, I want some shelter, it is raining heavily, can I come inside? So he responded from within, don't you know that this is the ashram or the hut of a sannyasi, you're not supposed to come within. So he said, no, I don't know, I can't go to any other place, I have no other shelter, please help me, please do something about me. So Jaimini Rishi, what he did was he opened the door. And when he opened the door, he just saw the silhouette. He didn't see exactly the face or anything. He just saw there was a lightning and he could just see the form of the lady. And then he closed the door immediately. So that now he closed the door, but his mind is telling, I'm a sannyasi. I'm the highest order of spiritual order. Isn't it my dharma or my religion to have compassion on somebody who's asking for shelter? I must give shelter to her. So then he told, okay, you can come inside, but with one condition. If anybody else knocks at the door, don't open it. Even if it is me, don't open the door. I said, okay, all right. And she comes inside. Jaimini Rishi goes out and he sleeps outside. And the door is locked. Door is locked. Jaimini Rishi is sleeping outside, but his mind starts meditating now. No, I need to get married to this woman, this lady. Now he goes and bangs the door. He knocks at the door. And the lady responds, who's this? Jaimini Rishi says, it's me, Jaimini Rishi. So open the door. She told, no, I'll not open the door. You have only told that don't open the door. Even if it is me, don't open the door. So no, I am the owner of this ashram. I am the owner of this hut. You have to open the door. Obey my order. Said, no, I can't do this. So, and she didn't open the door. Jaimini Rishi climbed the roof and he jumped from there inside. And he jumped inside and he told that lady that I want to marry him. Now that lady was intelligent and she had some intelligence, told, I don't know you at all. You don't know me at all. How can we get married? But then since you are a sage, I don't want to disrespect you by saying no. I'm okay to get married, but my father has a condition. The condition is anybody who wants to get married to me must become a donkey and carry me to the mountain, to the top of the mountain. And when you carry me to the top of the mountain, when you reach there, if you successfully do that, I'll get married. And while carrying me, you have to ensure that your face is completely covered with black soot. If you want to really marry me, then you have to do this. So Jaimini Rishi agreed, thinking that, okay, this is a nice proposal. Nobody will recognize me. If my face is covered with black soot, let me do this. So he carried this lady to the top of the mountain. And when he reached there on the top of the mountain and he thought that he has done it and he wanted to get married, he looked at the girl and the lady had transformed to Vedavyas, saying that you are saying that your senses are controlled, right? What happened to you? So the point what I'm trying to say is the yogis and munis, they may try in different ways, but it is very difficult to control the mind. Coming back to the same question of this the doubt thing, it's a very interesting conversation which happens between Prabhupada and one professor by name Lecoq. And this conversation is there in the Vedavyas, where this professor Lecoq asked this question to Prabhupada: to what extent would doubt be regarded as a sin or an element in sin? Because your doubting means, is it a sin? Because you don't have faith in the words of the Supreme Lord. You don't have the faith in the words of spiritual master. Is it a sin or an element in sin? So Prabhupada looks at Hamsaduta, who was sitting there. What is his question? Can you explain the question? He asks Hamsaduta. So Hamsaduta explains that. Prabhupada is asking, what is doubt? He wants to know. And Prabhupada, let's see what Prabhupada's answer is. Very nice, actually. Prabhupada says, doubt is good, provided if you make progress. Doubt is good only if you're making progress. But if you are stick to your own principle and doubt that is not good. So you have some doubts and you think whatever you are doing, that is correct, and you stick to your own principle, that is not good. When there is doubt, then you go to a person who can mitigate your doubt and explain. Yes. But if you stick to your own understanding, tradition, then doubt is not very beneficial. It sets you back. You cannot make progress. As soon as there is doubt, you go to a person who can explain about your doubt. This is the Vedic injunction, Prabhupada says. Go to a person and ask submissively. As we saw in this whole chapter, and as Arjuna did that, very submissively he is asking Arjuna to dispel this doubt, inquiring about that. If you hold on to that, if you click on to that, you cannot make progress. If you stick to your own understanding, tradition, then doubt is not very beneficial. So when this conversation is happening, there is another disciple of Prabhupada, Vrinda Devi. So this Vrinda Devi, Mataji, she is asking this question. Well, we have to trust someone. Now, when you are asking this question, that you can go and ask someone who can clear your doubts, you need to trust him. Prabhupada is saying, what is that? What she says? Amsudata again clarifies. She says you have to trust someone, Prabhupada. Just see, you have to trust somebody. You have to see the circumstances that here is a physician. He's treating some men. Like let's say you want to go to a doctor, you have some disease. Prabhupada is giving that example. He's treating some men and there are so many patients and he has got a medical degree. That's all. So you have to trust based on certain credentials that there are patients there. He's treating, he's got a degree and you have to go. Otherwise, how can you understand? If you see one man, Dr. Such and Such, medical practitioner, and actually you see that some patients are there and he's giving medicine, you can inquire also whether they are being cured. So these are the external features. With this, you have to select. But the injunction is when you are diseased, this is the important thing, you must go to a physician to consult. Similarly, when there is doubt, you must go to a guru. You have to approach someone who's superior and clarify that. If you don't do that, then there is a problem. This conversation goes further, and Prabhupada, is being concludes this, that now who's a guru? The definition is there. Just like who's a medical practitioner, the definition is there. The medical practitioner must be past medical man. He is passed in his medical examination. That is his qualification. And he is actually working in some hospital. Then you see, yes, here is a medical practice. Similarly, the Vedic instruction is to clear your doubts, you must go to a guru. And who's a guru? Brahmano hi pratishtaham. He is fully convinced in the absolute truth. That's all. Or one who is fully Krishna conscious. He is guru. So you have to begin that. Here is a man, he's talking only Krishna consciousness, then he may be accepted. But here is the caveat. You may go to someone who may not be bona fide, who may not be authorized. He may be a pseudo spiritual man. There may be a pseudo, but that is your fortune, Prabhupada says. That's your luck. You end up with someone like that. So is it, that's all? I end up with some fraud, then gone? Just like you have to go to a physician, but if the man is a pseudo fraud, that is your misfortune. But God is in everyone's heart. He leads. If you are actually sincere and serious, he'll take you to the real guru. This is the key. So here also the question is, if we are really serious, if we are really sincere, we will find the real guru. But God is in everyone's heart. He leads. If you are actually sincere and serious, he'll take you to the real guru. This is God's grace. Guru Krishna Kripai Paya Bhaktilata Beach. In one of the classes that Prabhupada has given on Srimad Bhagavatam, again on the same subject of doubt, Prabhupada says something very, very powerful, very interesting to know about it. If you put a question to your superior, to your master, so it is not that he's bound to answer it. Now, this is a very important thing. Sometimes when we are very impatient, we want to hear the answer because this is what our mind wants to hear. And we want immediately give the answer, give the answer. Prabhupada is saying that if you put a question to a superior, to your master, so it is not that he's bound to answer it. Because sometimes a particular question is put forward, the answer is not understandable by the questioner. So the superior, the master may refuse that. This answer is not to be given to you. For that reason, you cannot demand that you answer. You must answer. No, this is not the way. You may question submissively and you leave it at that point in time. Because the answer, you are not prepared to even receive the answer. Many times it can happen. Whatever the truth is, you're not even in a position to even digest that. Rather, you'll rebel, you'll become uncomfortable. Sometimes the answers are not given. And it is important to understand why it is like that. Prabhupada gives the example of Parikshit. Whenever he put a question to Sukadev Goswami, he very submissively says, if you think that I'm capable of understanding, please answer this question. Arjuna also said like that. Here also the Yamadutas, they are also putting forward very submissively, Yadi manasya kanmam. Yadi no manasya. If you think us competent to understand the answer, then please. This is a very important thing to know. While we are putting our doubt in a submissive manner to someone, don't expect that the answer has to come. Don't demand an answer, because the demanding attitude is basically wanting to hear what your mind feels is the right thing. And to conclude our time together, reach the time today's explanation. Very interestingly, this is the last verse, and this is the last thing that I want to share with respect to this doubt. We all know about the Chatushloki Bhagavata, which was spoken by Krishna to Brahma in his heart, the 4 seed-giving verses, which has got everything. 33, 34, 35, 36. And very interesting to know what happens after that 4 verses were spoken to Brahma. This is 37th verse, where the Lord is telling, Etan matam samatishta paramena samadhina bhavan kalpa vikalpeshu na vimuhyati karhichit. Translation is, O Brahma, just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you, neither in the partial nor in the final devastation. You see, why this verse is very important. When Krishna revealed this knowledge, this is how this whole knowledge was transmitted to Brahma's mind. Of course, Brahma did a lot of austerities, but he got this knowledge. But when he got the knowledge, what Krishna is telling him to be careful of. Follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind. Just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind. Why? And no pride will disturb you. One may say that, well, Brahma was the secondary creator. He was doing this creation. It's a big important position. He may develop the pride. That's why Krishna is telling that otherwise pride will come to you that you have done this. So, he's telling that. But actually, it is true for any one of us. This pride that I have done that and I have not got it by Krishna's grace easily overcome us. That is why it is important to fix our concentration, our mind in this subject, in this transcendental knowledge. Just follow this conclusion by fixed concentration of mind, and no pride will disturb you, neither in the partial nor in the final devastation. That's the sum and substance of today's verse that we spoke, and how doubt, when it is converted to a submissive inquiry, attracts the mercy of Krishna, and it invokes the transcendental love in the heart. Is something we need to meditate. Stop here and see if you have any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, sir. There is one question here. Can you just pause for a moment? I'll
For example, one is not doing enough devotion as required. One is able to pursue that. In that case, how should one ask?
How should one inquire means? Okay. So the question is, one is not able to do devotional service fully as expected. He is aware of it. How should he inquire? How should he inquire is very easy. The first inquiry that one can do is from the Lord who's seated in the heart. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Tesham satada yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam. The Lord gives intelligence seated in the heart. We need to learn the art of hearing the voice of Krishna in the heart. If I am serious and I'm looking for an answer, most of the situations, actually one can go to an advanced Vaishnava, first thing. Maybe let me change the order. One may go to the advanced Vaishnava and can put his questions very without any reservations, without any inhibitions, just put it and look for a answer in a genuine, humble manner. Accept it. Say you don't have an access, or he's not approachable, or something is happening, he's not there. Then Prabhupada says he's available in his books. The best way it works, actually, I've seen many times when your mind is disturbed, agitated, you don't know what to do, or whatever, these doubts are coming. Just pray to Prabhupada, because Prabhupada says the words of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam are non-different from Krishna. Open one page of any one page, just pray to Krishna, this mystical process, just open and read that. It'll answer your thing. Third thing is depend on the Supreme Lord who's seated in the heart, and look for directions from him. Tadami buddhi. There is nothing else that you can do. These are the ways that you can get answers. Yes, Harish. Happy to see you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Very good.
And Hare Krishna for today's class. So Prabhu, you said Muni or Muni Syndrome, and every other Muni has to differ the other Munis or Rishi's theory, right? Now, their objective is also to reach the abode of the Lord, if I'm understanding this in a right way. Okay?
Correct.
Having said that, now there are different acharyas and different sampradayas as well. They also tell the same objective of to attain the abode of the Lord. But they also have different ways to seek that. So you said Muni has to differ, and they come with a different way to approach this. Now acharyas and different sampradayas are telling the same thing. So what is the difference between an acharya and a Muni?
Good
And
question. Okay, what is it? You had a second part to that. What is that?
no. What is the difference between an acharya and a Muni, or it is just a continuation? But as far as you understood the question, that is what my intent.
So I got the question. So basically, my point of telling that I have nothing against Munis. Right? I'm not. This is a quotation from Mahabharata where it is mentioned the Munis. A Muni will be a Muni only when he differs from another Muni. That's what the mental speculators, they do that. Now, if you see why I told that Mama Vartamanu Vartante Manushya Partha Sarvasa. That is the words of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's words, where Krishna is telling anybody who is surrendering to him, whichever way, not that this is superior, that is inferior, that comes much later. Whichever way, as you are surrendering, Krishna is going to reciprocate. But Krishna also clarifies that of all these processes, like if you take up with this process of Ashtanga Yoga, or if you take up with this process of Jnana Yoga, it is very difficult to practice. Like that's what I was telling. Klesho adhikataras tesham, the 12.5, chapter 12, 5th verse. Klesho adhikataras tesham, avyakta sakta chetasa. If your mind you want to attach to the impersonal concept of the Supreme Absolute Truth, it is very difficult to make progress. This is Krishna's words. Or if you say 6th chapter, we are reading this, towards the end it will come, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana, Shraddhavan bhajate yomam samay yuktatam. There are so many yogis. There are so many different ways they are practicing. But of all those yogis, Shraddhavan bhajate yomam, who is actually engaging in devotional service with Shraddha, with faith, he is very dear to me. Samay yuktatama, he is the topmost. So, what I am trying to say now, imagine a child. If a child is asked to do Ashtanga Yoga, I was just giving the example, the devotee sitting here find it very difficult, including me when I sit there. Not easy to sit in one place and meditate. So imagine how difficult it will be even for a small child. He has to do some Ashtanga Yoga with tip of the nose, meditating and all. It's very difficult. But whereas a child, if he has to, if somebody asks him to chant the names of the Lord, or participate in Kirtan, or just take Krishna Prasadam, very easily performed. So Sukham Kartum Abhyam, very easily done. This is why we are saying that if somebody engages in devotional service, it is easier to practice and follow. And this is the topmost. Because Krishna in 7.19, this verse you should see, Bhunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Mam Prapadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sutullava. After many births, Gyanavan Mam Prapadyante. People who are following this path of Jnana, they understand their position and surrender to me. So having known all these things, why not take to this process which Krishna is recommending and saying that this is the easiest and the best method to do? Does that answer?
Absolutely, Prabhu. Thank you for this. But as an ending note, my apologies that my intention was not to tell you or quote you that you are defying Muni's theory. It is just that despite every other Acharya and Sampradaya is already directing us to the objective of reading, but again we have these quarrels, our Sampradaya is so, or this Sampradaya is like that. So that is the reason why I was like, even within the Sampradayas also there is a defying or different theories.
Actually, it is very silly to fight or argue or quarrel. Because everybody who's taken any process based on his surrender, Krishna is reciprocating. Now, who am I to say that you are hopeless or you are, we have to be very broad-minded. We have to understand that the person who's making progress in whatever way he is in, based on his surrender, the Lord is going to reciprocate. But ultimately, if you can share this knowledge and say that this is ultimately, the path that you have to come, and if you take up this path, this is the easiest path. Why don't you do it? I think that's the win-win situation.
Sure, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Ankit.
Just one question, Prabhuji. One thing, my question is from the beginning we are hearing one thing, right? If we will surrender, then definitely Lord will reciprocate. So after coming to Krishna consciousness, how we will come to know that Lord is reciprocating on us?
Okay, very simple. Answer is very simple. You don't need to ask an external person this. You ask yourself. You look at the people who are there with you who are not Krishna conscious, and now yourself or your life before you became Krishna conscious and after you become Krishna conscious. Materially, what's going on, I don't know. Materially, Krishna is not taking responsibility that you will become some successful entrepreneur or CEO or anything of that. But look at your spiritual condition. How much you are protected from the onslaught of this external energy. In terms of, so let's say your desire to enjoy this material world, the senses, it reduces. Actually, the sign of advancement, as mentioned in our scriptures, of a person, if he wants to know whether he's really making progress or not, can be seen how much he has become detached from material sense enjoyment. On which this thing. Anybody who is taking up this path, right, who has not taken up to Krishna consciousness, and let's say who's addicted to drinking and doing all kinds of things, material world is only about that. There's nothing much in that. Only some variations, permutation, combination you can do and bring some varieties and enjoy in this way or that way. How much of trouble they are inviting? How maybe there is a immediate gratification, little happiness is there, but for that little happiness, how much of price they're paying? Not only just mental this thing, physical this thing, because it leads to so many problems, leads to so many other things. Whereas a person who's going through this transformation process of taking to spirituality, his life is very simple. Priorities are simple. He lives a life which is necessary to keep his body and soul together, but his goal is fixed in that self-realization. This is what is actually the reason I brought this topic today. When the doubt is converted to an inquiry, that is where the first Brahma Sutra is Athato Brahma Jigyasa. In this human life, you are meant to do that kind of an inquiry. Imagine if you are indulging in all these material activities, yet you forget to do this inquiry. What is the use? It's a waste of time. And depending upon our conviction, faith, surrender, the Lord reciprocates. He gives us. So many miracles happen in our life where our faith gets transformed, our life gets changed, and the Lord in the form of holy name, the Lord in the form of deity reciprocates and brings us out of the clutches of Maya. It's a war that we are fighting against Maya, and Maya is very careful and very vigilant. To come out of the clutches of Maya is not easy. That's why you need the mercy of a pure devotee spiritual master, and depending upon your surrender and seriousness, you come out of the clutches. Any question? Any other questions? Naveen?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, it was very clear, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the lecture.
Most welcome. This is very nicely given in our scriptures, the role of doubts and how when it is converted to an inquiry and what mood, how to inquire, what happens. Just a beautiful thing.
Yes, bro, definitely. Thank you so much, bro.
Srinivas.
Oh, Prabhu. I'm good, Prabhu. It's good.
All right, if no questions, we'll stop here and we will continue to see next verse, next class. We will see Krishna's answers. What happens to a man who's unsuccessful? I mean, it can happen to anyone, right? Nobody is 100% sure what is going to happen tomorrow. How our mind is going to act, we don't know. But there are ways and means by which we can curtail and curb this restless mind. But imagine, despite all your efforts, you are unsuccessful. What will happen to you? Krishna answers, beautiful answers. Those answers reassure our faith in this path that we've taken. It gives us that hope. What is this wonderful process which has been gifted to us by Prabhupada, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and by Krishna? We will see that. Join us to know that. Till then, we will stop here. Can I request all of you to come in front of your camera and raise your hands? We will chant once Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Hare Hare.
Grantharashtra
Jai.
Jai.
by God Prema.
Hari Hari Bol.